What's going on, everybody? This is the SI Sooners podcast. Back with you again, episode 113. Josh Callaway in Oklahoma City, John Hoover in Tulsa, Ryan Chapman in Norman. Night pod. It's 10:10 on a Tuesday night. We're recording Tuesday, March 8th, as things currently stand. Recording a little early because Wednesday, March the 9th, when you're probably listening to this or watching on YouTube, is OU Pro Day. And there's Board of Regents meeting. We'll talk about all that stuff here coming in just a moment. But basically, it's a very busy day. And then Ryan and I are heading to Kansas City. So there's just a lot going on. It just made more sense to record the show a little early. But guys, how are we doing? March has been insane already. It's been one of the more busy months we've, at least personally, for all of us, I think, that we've had. And it's only the 8th. But so far, so good.
Best conversation we've had yet with the Groves Bros. That's another reason we're recording on Tuesday, because they're in Kansas City right now. They're going to be tied up tomorrow, practice, scouting, all that stuff. So, looking forward to seeing how the Sooners do up in Kansas City, as well as Jenny Baranchik's Sooners as well. You guys are going to be up there covering that, fighting the snow.
Unbelievable.
But I can tell you this, stick around for the Groves Bros podcast at the end, the final segment, because it gets pretty good. It gets pretty hilarious.
Had to dig in with them. Look, we're just shooting from the hip here. It's I feel like we've broken down that initial, okay, you're Tanner and Jacob, and it's weird that you're on the floor, but you hang with that. Now it's just like, we're shooting from the hip. We're digging into the inner workings of the team, the things we need to know. Who is most likely to jettison an Xbox controller out the window at the team hotel? We're getting down to the nitty gritty.
Absolutely. Yeah, Groves Bros, episode 5, coming up at the end of the show, as per usual, third segment. I agree with Hoover, probably our best one so far. It was a fun conversation with them and a good insight to the team going into this huge week in Kansas City. You know, obviously, season on the line. It's pretty simple to me. 2 wins, they're definitely in. 0 wins, they're not going to be in. 1 win, maybe. And we'll talk about that in the second segment a little bit. Obviously, we'll kind of preview the week in Kansas City with both the basketball teams out there. And like we said, Ryan and I will be headed north on Thursday morning, battling the elements again up there to KC. But we'll start the show, as we usually do, with some football cleanup here. And there actually is a lot going on. More so than maybe you would think for like still this pre-spring ball stretch that we're in right now. But there's a lot happening. We'll try and get through it all. I'm sure we'll end up missing something and we'll be like, oh, wait, we didn't even touch on that. But let's get the big news of the week, I think, for most OU fans out of the way first. The spring game day was set, which was April 23rd, which is what we kind of knew because Ethan Downs' dad just dropped that news casually on like a random Saturday. Nobody gave him the clearance to drop. Yeah. And he had the kickoff wrong, though. I think he said 2, and it was actually 3. So they probably moved it back an hour just to like not give him the satisfaction of getting it completely
You've got to control that message, man. Got to control that message.
3 o'clock.
We're having it at 3 o'clock. We'll have the Baker thing later.
Yeah, that's the big news, really, of it is that, and this has been speculated for a while, but it finally is going to happen. Baker Mayfield is going to get his statue on April the 23rd. Obviously, it's not news that he's getting one. He won the Heisman. You get one when you win the Heisman. A lot of college football Twitter had a hard time wrapping their brain around that the last couple of days, or
Browns,
ever since that was announced.
Twitter as well. Browns fans, Browns haters, they're like, "Why is he getting a statue? He's terrible."
Well, it's Heisman Park. That's how that works. But there you go. Actually, there was a couple people that were like, "Does Jason White have a statue?" It's like, well, yeah, he does actually. Do even like 1 second of research for saying something.
Right.
But yeah, so Baker's getting his statue. He's going to be in Norman, which is cool. You know, I'm sure that we'll get the chance to, maybe talk to him. I don't know how that's all going to work. I haven't ever covered a statue unveiling. Who has? But we'll see how that all goes. So Baker will be in Norman for the spring game. Just adds to the insanity of that day. That's already shaping up as like one of our longer days. I can feel it already. It's like 6 weeks away, and I'm already like tired thinking about it. But it's cool that it's finally happening, and that's going to be a heck of a day. I'll tell you what, Brent Venables said in the release that he challenges OU fans to fill it up. They might fill it up with the energy of around the program right now, and then you throw in the Baker statue thing. it's going to be a huge crowd. I don't know what the OU record is for a spring game, but it's in jeopardy, I think, this year.
I think we had it a couple of years ago. It was 52,000, something like that. 2018, Kyler's year, maybe?
Trace Atkins? The Trace
52,000.
Atkins year?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, 52,000, 55,000, something like that. I think this one could go to 70.
No honky-tonk needed.
No.
What's the concert? That's really the only thing I'm waiting for. Does the concert die with Lincoln, or does Brent keep the concert going?
We had that conversation on my radio show today in Tulsa at the Sports Animal. We were just like, does he continue this new age kind of vibe about what Lincoln steered everything recruiting wise toward two things. One is the barbecue during the summer, and the other one is spring football, the actual spring game. So how does Brent and his new staff handle that? Because he's got all new people in all new positions. So it might be an athletic department thing at this point where it's done so well and gotten so many. That's the thing is when you look around and you see who's attending and you see there's 100 recruits here, they're not going to sign 100 recruits. They're not going to sign 100 recruits in 4 classes. But there's enough guys here that they can pick and choose and really try to put their best foot forward and impress the kids that do come, whoever that is. It's become quite an event. It's become a spectacle. So I think they have to continue that momentum.
Well, and even if it's not a huge visitor weekend as far as 50 guys coming in, Steve Wiltfong from 247 Sports put it out there early in the day on Tuesday that Levius Overton, the huge defensive line commit that reclassified from 2023 to 2022 and was still like a top 50 recruit nationally. That shows you how good he is, that a year younger, everyone's like, he's still a top 50 guy. OU gets his last visit of the 5 that he's getting. He's scheduled OU spring game for the last one. So it's going to be a huge visitor day, even if he's the only person there, because that could be a guy that's like, okay, you lost Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. Everyone's going, oh gosh, the defensive recruiting, it's hitting the reset button. The staff looks like a bunch of recruiting monsters, but we just haven't seen it yet at OU. That's one of those guys that you immediately get that and all that washes away. It goes, oh my gosh, Oklahoma hasn't snapped a ball yet with Brent Venables and Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis, and look what they're already doing. What that does mentally for the momentum heading into 2023, it's huge. So it'll be interesting to see. Funny enough, we had a similar conversation on our radio show today, John, although not the professionals you guys are, we were curious who's most and least likely if Brent Venables gets a concert, what that's going with. I officially suggested we need a hard reset, a change of pace. Andrea Bocelli's coming to Oklahoma City around that time. Just get him in. The most famous voice in all the world. Bring him in for the spring game.
Oh, my.
I say heart. Maybe not.
We're getting Meek Mill. If we took a straw poll with the team, I think Meek would be the guy. So maybe Meek Mill. Go happy medium.
They played Dreams and Nightmares a ton last year. Now that's a different era, but just get Lil Johnish to Who You With like 15 times.
Yeah,
just do it over and over and over. I think that's
Who You With.
Who You With. That's what you do. The only 2 sports that have it, football and softball. The only 2 they've claimed that song.
I noticed
Nobody
that.
else uses it.
Yeah.
At the game last night, I noticed that. So, okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are, but those are 2 sports that use it. I haven't heard it used in any other sport. So,
and softball claims they started.
Did they use it before football?
That's the word on the street. Softball claims that the origin of Who You With on campus in Norman before a game was not at Gaylord Family Oakland Memorial Stadium. It was up the road a little bit. Now, it's an off-season story that I pitched to Hoove last year, and we just got doing other things. I may have to circle back this summer and try to do some digging, get to the bottom of that, because just because you claim it doesn't mean it's true. But that's the claim that's the word on the street.
Who You With and oral history. Yeah,
I want a deep dive. I want a deep dive done into OU's use of Lil Uzi Vert in their videos, because I pointed this out a couple weeks ago that they use him a lot, and since then it's happened more. And I pointed it out, and people are starting to recognize it. There's somebody likes him a lot. Somebody who makes those videos is like a huge fan or something. Because once I noticed it, now I notice it. Every sport too, they all use it a ton. It's like weird.
You want the boring version of that one too? So when they sign the
answer
NIL
for that
deal,
too?
yeah. So when they sign the NIL deals and stuff, wrapped in that is a distribution deal with a record label. So like they get the library to, I don't remember what the record label is, but it's Lil Uzi Vert's record label. They get that library for all of their videos, what they're allowed to use, stuff like that. So someone's probably just in the library and just likes Lil Uzi Vert.
Very interesting. They use that way. Football use it and then softball use it like back-to-back days. I was like, there's something going on here. There's something. Maybe he's at the spring game.
If that's the case, Ryan, we need to get a new intro for the Groves Bros. If they're doing that for NIL, we need to get a new Groves Bros intro, because my intro is not good enough if we have that available.
We'll get Sooner Sports Properties on the horn and see if that extends to the actual NIL deals or if that's just a backroom thing.
Yeah. Anyway, we got, we'll talk about the spring game a lot, obviously, in the lead up to it, and spring football starts soon. The Baker statue is going to be a big part of that day. Obviously, that's going to be a cool thing. He already said, like, he'll be there. Not that you wouldn't expect him to be there for his own statue, but he said already that he is going to be there. And so that'll be a really cool stuff. We're going to have a ton of coverage that day. Like I said, I'm tired already, but that's going to be a fun one in Norman. Hopefully the weather is kind that day. That's already kind of what I'm thinking about a little bit. So that's what's coming up. Later, obviously, in April 23rd, officially set for the spring game. Like I said, we actually have had a lot to kind of touch on here. I think we just kind of backtrack and work our way forward. Let's go back to last Thursday. We talked about it on last week's show that we were going to get to talk to the 4 new defensive assistants and then 4 returning offensive assistants. And we did it. It was a 2+ hour marathon presser. It was started like almost an hour late, so it was a day in Norman, but it was really cool to get to talk to all these guys. There's too much to like talk about, way too much to talk about everything on the show, so I figured I kind of just let you guys touch on a couple things that you wanted to. Obviously, for me, and we talked about it in our wrap up that we did, and it's still obviously there for you on allstars.com, and check that out, but the defensive assistants, all extremely engaging. Jay Valai, Miguel Chavis, Todd Bates, and Brandon Hall, crazy well-spoken. And it was like, dang, these guys are going to recruit well. That seemed pretty clear to me. That was one of the big things that stuck out to all of us. But anything else that you guys wanted to, make sure to note, getting to talk to those guys for the first time and the offensive assistants for the first time since everything happened, since all the chaos of Lincoln Riley leaving?
The whole thing with it's a weird dynamic. You've got all new defensive assistants, and you've got all the offensive assistants are back except for the offensive coordinator. You've got a new coordinator who we've already talked to via Zoom, so he didn't show up. Jeff Levy wasn't made available. But I thought it was interesting that, and not that the offensive guys did bad or anything. I thought they did great, very engaging as well. But they seemed like they were more like answering questions, didn't they? Like you would ask a question and they would answer a question. The defensive guys, who have never met any of us before, don't know any of us at all, personally, professionally, or any other way. The defensive guys who Brent Venables brings with him, they were like stopping the press conference to ask, whoa, what was your name? What's your name? I'd like to know your name. And then they would engage you, and Jay Valai kept calling everybody brother, like, all right, brother, let's do this. Hey, yeah, great question, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
We've never had that before, regardless of who was here, whether it was Bob or Lincoln or Mike Stoops answering a question, anybody. We've never had that level of personal engagement and investment in a bunch of yokels like us who are just asking questions. I was blown away by that. So maybe the offensive guys will look at those videos and say, I see what's going on here. Kind of get a clue as to, and again, not that they did bad or anything. It was a great Q&A with both the offensive guys and the defensive guys. There was just a completely different vibe with the defensive guys who, again, they don't know how we've been doing things here. They didn't know what to expect. They don't know any of us. They didn't hardly know Mike Houck, the moderator, who's sitting there telling them, okay, this guy is going to ask a question next. Josh Callaway or Ryan Chapman or John Hoover is going to ask a question next. They were like having fun with it. They were
yeah,
kind of just rolling with everything during this Q&A. It was It was weird, almost. It was. This is how I phrased it on my radio show. It was like when the pilot on the airplane comes back and starts talking to everybody, and you're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, no, I'm good. I appreciate it. Drinks are fine. Yeah, the stewardess is nice. Appreciate you. Who's flying the plane, bruh? You're like in the back of your mind, you're like, is everything okay here? Is there a problem? Because this is not normal. It's just a weird kind of vibe, weird dynamic.
Well, and two, it's like, okay, so Todd Bates started it off, and like you said, it was, hey, we're going to go to John Hoover to ask the question, and Todd's like, and your name's John, right? Okay, and he's trying to, like, mentally catalog it. Chavis did the exact same thing, and you're like, okay, those two guys came from Clemson, Salt and Pepper, allseniors.com. If you don't get that reference, they talked a lot about that. But then it's like, okay, Jay Valino, you came from Alabama. You've been with this staff for how long? And you're doing the same thing, too. It's just a very, like you said, it's personable, and it goes back to that Brent Venables hammers it, relational, not just a transaction thing. And it goes back to, obviously, I was not on the beat when Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator here, as I think in high school maybe when he left. But one of those things where he just talks about, like, hearing it from John that Brent didn't just, like, walk over to media scrums and look down at anyone like, I'm the coach, you're the media. Like, he's like, no, hey, how you guys doing? I'm happy to answer all your questions. I'll try to explain it if you've got, like, a football question, or if you're just talking about someone, all that stuff. So it's really interesting. I think that on top of that, and you could tell, especially with the defensive guys, they haven't actually got to coach the guys on the field yet, just because that's how winter workouts and stuff go. So it was a lot of, like, Miguel Chavis. He talked about how he goes out of his way to try and take his position group out to dinner, where there's an embargo on football talk. He's like, we talk enough football in the facility. I want to get to know you. The way he, like, described it is, I want to get to know you and Sally, who you've been dating for 2 weeks, and you're just Facebook official, and in 2 weeks you're going to be broken up, but that doesn't matter because I'm getting to know you and your life and building that relationship. Because then you had the money quote of the day that's like, if you love your players love you. Like, you can coach them as hard as you want because you've got that built in. So you kind of started to see the groundwork to that. And then just on top of that, we got a ton of info as far as coaching feedback from what the Soul Mission, a little more about it, and how both the Clemson guys that came over and, like, Joe John Finley, who's been at a bunch of stops already in his young coaching career, basically is like, I've never seen anything like this. Bill Bedenbaugh said it was something he thought the program was missing, but you don't see it until you have it. Then you're like, how did we ever do it without this? So I thought that was pretty fascinating. It's not even like Todd Bates, like, oh yeah, we do this all the time. Like, everyone thinks this is pretty novel and cool. And it makes sense how Clemson had so much success not losing guys to the portal and getting guys to come back for an extra year that probably should have gone pro.
Yeah, I mean, it just really felt like all the new defensive guys, getting to hear them all talk, it was like, oh, I see why Brent Venables likes these guys. They all were Brent Venables guy. Like, they all, like, they're friends. Like, I can see, like, you just see it. The way they talk and they say stuff, it's like, that sounds like Brent Venables talking. Like they all were very Venables-y to me. They all kind of stuck out in that way. They all shared that kind of common thread through them. And so that was really, really cool. And we got
Ryan,
to talk.
I'll share.
Yeah,
you mentioned the Venables stuff earlier. I'll share this with you as well. Venables used to, during the post-practice media scrums back in 2004 to 2011, he would come in and every Tuesday, whatever it was, Tuesday night, and he'd stand up against the wall and laugh and joke. And, I was wearing a blue and gold, like, pullover one time, and had, like, yellow, gold kind of stripes or whatever. It was a little, I don't know, it was an old school one, but he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, nice West Virginia colors, Hoover." Giving me a hard time because the year before in the bowl game, they had just lost to West Virginia. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, it's Adidas. I didn't even think about it being the colors. But the best part about those interactions with Brent was he would stay sometimes for like an hour. We do like an interview with Bill Bedenbaugh or previously Mike Stoops or whoever, Alex Grinch or whoever, and it'd be like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He would say, "Okay, you guys got what you need? Good. Okay, thanks. Appreciate y'all coming in. Everything else going all right?" Yeah. Did you hear that one about the chicken across the road or whatever? He would stay for an hour sometimes and just engage you in personal conversation. Or sometimes he would tell stories from the old staff room about Mike Leach versus Mark Mangino. The run game coach wanted to run the ball more, and you can call those plays, or you can give me those plays. I'm not going to call any of them. And then Mangino comes across the table at him, right, and the coffee spills everywhere, and everybody's laughing, going, "Slow down, Bear." He would tell those stories to us. The personal interactions were just invaluable, and I know he remembers some of those, and that was just one that comes to my mind. But we'd have 3 or 4 of those a week. Oh, you think that's funny? Listen to this, blah blah blah, and we'd all be cracking up, dying laughing, and that's just what's important to Brent Venables, personal relationships. And when he left, it wasn't the easiest thing you can imagine. If it's like that with us, with reporters, imagine what it was like for him to leave Mike and Bob and that staff and go to Clemson so he could spread his wings and grow as a coach. He did that. Now he's back, and guess what? He's got even more. He's got that kind of Dabo feel to him now. Where some of what Dabo does as a head coach and as a CEO of the Clemson program has rubbed off on him. So he's a little bit Bill Snyder, he's a little bit Bob Stoops, and he's a little bit Dabo Swinney. I think Sooner fans are going to love this guy. I think he's going to win at a very high level.
Yeah, I mean it's important to note, and I say it often because it is March 8th. I haven't even got to spring yet. Obviously haven't played a game, but it does feel like the camaraderie and all that stuff right now is super high. And I'm sure that if we were doing this show in 2017 or whatever, after Lincoln's first pressers and stuff, we probably would have been talking about how great he was. And a lot of people have brought that up. There's lots of articles and stuff written at that time about how he crushed his first presser and all that stuff. So it is important to note that thing. But it does seem like all that, like everything Hoof said, there's a harmony to everything right now that is evident, and all the new coaches were really impressive. So that was cool to get to hear from all of them for the first time, and recommend you go to allsooners.com and watch them. Watch all the 4 new guys, especially to get to know them a little bit, because obviously we'd never talked to them. I didn't totally know what to expect, and they were all really cool, especially Miguel Chavis. He was a lot of fun. I hope we get to get him more throughout the spring of the season.
He's super
dope. Yeah, he said the Jordan sponsorship was super dope.
I was going to say, if you head to allseries.com, watch those videos, the only point of contention or awkwardness really comes just Brandon Hall and his relationship with podiums. He hated that podium. He's walking all over the place. He's like, hey, if you're asking the question, I'm going to walk up to you and give you that answer face to face, which was not a problem. It was just funny.
No, I'm working the camera back there, and I was like, oh, I was constantly having to push it around. If I'm not, I got to be on my game when Brandon Hall's at the podium. There's no doubt about that, because he's walking everywhere. But yeah, cool.
I can't do that on your Apple Watch.
Got Siri talking to me. Didn't Hoof had that happen one time?
My Alexa went off in the other room. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Siri saying, "I don't know what you're saying." I moved around too quickly. Anyway, but yeah, great to hear from all the new guys. Great to hear from the offensive assistants for the first time since Brent Venables took over. Obviously, for the first time since Lincoln Riley left. So there was a lot to fill in. Really we'll allsooners.com. You say we've had tons of great content come out of that already, and all the videos are there for you to watch them yourself.
Yeah, a bunch of stories from those press conferences, including each one of the new guys, the defensive guys, kind of peeled back the curtain a little bit and revealed a little bit about himself. And so I'm writing every day. I'm writing something about what they said about themselves, their growing up, their coaching background, their history, their family, their where they came from before coaching. Three of the guys weren't even coaches. They didn't even start out as coaches, and here they are coaching at the University of Oklahoma, one of the all-time blue bloods in college football. So fascinating dynamic, but they're very revealing, and I hope you guys enjoy those stories. Allsooners.com. We had 2 this week. We'll have 2 more later in the week after the Wednesday chaos settles down a little bit.
Absolutely, and part of that Wednesday chaos, like I mentioned right at the top, is Pro Day. Ryan and I will be there in Norman tomorrow at Everest Training Center. Training Center, is that the right proper term? Yep. Started it before I knew where it was going. Everest Training Center. It was where last time we were there was Brent Venables had his hoopla, and I had a full bottle of water get thrown away. so I know to hide it this time. Going in. But yeah, so pro day tomorrow. We talked about the combine and stuff last week a little bit, but that was more kind of a pre-combine. Now we've had it kind of come and go. So kind of combining this into one a little bit. Pro day tomorrow / Wednesday. You're listening to this is today. Ryan and I are there. Tons of coverage coming out of that. What guys, what are some things that have poked out to you so far in the combine, pro day, coming up tomorrow? Just anything you're kind of looking for in this area for the guys head of the draft. Some guys had some really eye-popping stuff. Benito had a huge combine. His 40 was like lightning fast. Imperion had a good pro day, or I keep saying pro day, a good combine as well. Some other guys, have a chance to kind of one-up things moving over to the pro day here in Norman. So what are some things you're watching for on Wednesday?
I'll start. I don't know who all's going to run, of the guys that ran at the combine, because I think everybody that ran at the combine ran really well. Nick Benito doesn't have to go anywhere. 4.54 is what he turned in. Perion turned in a 4.89 and tweaked his left, I think, hamstring, possibly his quad, but he had a wrap all the way around it, so I'm not sure which muscle it is. Don't expect him to run at all. That's just me. I don't expect him to run at all. I'm not hearing that. I'm just speculating. He ran great, and then he hurt himself. He's got nothing to gain by trying to run or do any of the drills or anything like that. He needs to go out there and meet with the team, spend his time getting some face time with those guys. Gabe Burkich did not run at the combine, as you would expect. Too bad, because I wanted to see just how fast he is. A former soccer player, should be pretty fast.
Yeah.
But at least he's not kicking any burritos at the combine. I would not do that if I were him at the pro day. Who else? Isaiah Thomas ran 4.7.
Kenny
For
Brooks.
Someone who's 6'5", 266, that's not slow at all. So I thought he stood out.
Kenny Brooks wasn't bad.
Somewhat, yeah. Kennedy Brooks ran a 4.59, right? 4.59, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
That's faster than what we thought he was going to be. I remember I leaned over Ryan and told you during the Alamo Bowl when he popped that one down the right sideline, I said, he's going to be in the NFL because he's fast enough. He can do that stuff right there. I looked it up. There are currently, from the last 2 draft classes, there are currently 4 starters in the NFL who ran slower, some significantly slower than 4.59. Starting running backs in the NFL, a couple of them are 1,000-yard guys. So I think Kennedy Brooks has got what he's need. He's shown what he has to do. And then who was the other one? I tell you who needs to run is Jeremiah Hall. He ran a 4.98. The only thing slower than a 4.98 is an offensive lineman at the combine. So I'm sure Jeremiah was, for whatever reason, was not able to put his best foot forward. So he's going to be real eager to go out there and do that again at the pro day. That's something that I think will help him out a lot. Fullback, though, man, guys, fullback is a tough position in the NFL. The NFL has gotten away from fullbacks, and if you're a fullback, you've got 1 strike against you. If you run a 4.98, you've got 2 strikes against you. So that's a tough one for him. I hope he's able to run a better time tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say Jeremiah for that exact reason. And then just moving off the testing, I really think that the offensive linemen should, when you get into the one-on-one drills, I think that's an area where Bill Bedenbaugh usually has that drilled really well. And obviously, remember last year, Creed Humphrey, like Lincoln Riley was raving about how it was one of the best pro days that he's seen. A lot of that was the physical testing stuff. But 2, once you got into the drills, he was demolishing the pads and wasn't even breaking a sweat. And remember, that's when a scout hops in and does that, right? So that's someone that gets to hop in and go one-on-one FaceTime with those guys, work them through those drills. I think both of those guys have some ground that they can gain. Not that they need to make up anything, but they can gain just by going through that. Just knowing that Bedenbaugh and their trainers both, when you have that 2-headed monster of that going through draft prep, that's one of those spots where they can really shine.
Absolutely. Interested in Mike Woods too. He seemed to do really well in the kind of the drills. He had 1 or 2 really highlight catches that kind of got the attention of the NFL Twitter account and stuff like that. Small things, but kind of interested to see if he can't play do some more to help himself out tomorrow. So Ryan and I will be there in Norman for the pro day tomorrow. Hoove, meanwhile, is going to be hanging back. He's going to be covering remotely. He's not making the trip for it because he got some other stuff. But the Board of Regents meeting tomorrow which is going to approve a lot of these coaching contracts and other stuff on the agenda. You guys are more tapped into this than me, who you're going to cover it tomorrow. Why are OU fans pay attention to this, essentially, with the coaching contracts and stuff like that? What are some things that are going to be coming out of this tomorrow?
Yeah, we know some of the numbers have been revealed already, been reported, but what you're going to see tomorrow is the Board of Regents is going to discuss and approve some numbers that have already been discussed and approved, which is the salaries,
right,
in terms of those contracts. So what's important about this is that Oklahoma needs to continue to be. These are new coaches. These are young coaches. You got a 33-year-old and a 34-year-old, and some former. Offensively, you got some former players that are probably looking for raises. Had a pretty good year last year, so everybody's going to get a raise, I would think, at some point. And that one might not come until June. The raises might not come until the June Board of Regents meeting, but this one will be to approve the contracts of the new guys. And you want to see your school be competitive. If Alabama's paying an average of $550,000 a year for their assistant coaches, then Oklahoma needs to pay upwards of $550,000 for their assistant coaches. You want to be competitive with the best because you want to be able to attract the best. If you're attracting the best, obviously you're going to get guys in here that are good recruiters, good coaches, good developers of talent, sending guys off to the NFL. Winning championships is what everybody wants around here. So that's going to be big. The hard sell, though, with some of these, and I'm sure Joe, Castiglione will have already poured over the numbers and done a cost analysis and effectively turned up what's appropriate for someone of their age level or their experience level or their talent level, whatever it is. I don't think you're going to see Oklahoma matching the number one team in the country, the number one program in terms of salaries. I don't think that's going to be a thing, but you need to stay competitive. If the top third of the SEC is one thing, you need to be above whatever that level is of the top third of the SEC. So, because that's where you're headed. You're going to be there in the future.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too, because remember, also, this will be the first time in a long time that when Oklahoma's factoring in their contracts, Lincoln Riley was paid as one of the highest paid head coaches in the country. And then you also saved money because he was also your offensive coordinator. So you weren't having to shell out $1.5 million to keep an OC. You're just, hey, Lincoln Riley needs to be paid as one of the highest paid coaches. So it's a little reset on that side as far as having to pay an OC, having to pay a DC. But then also, Joe Harris at the last Board of Regents meeting talked about that was when Lincoln Riley was going on his subtle, veiled USC will do what it takes to win at a high level. We've already seen some of the numbers. J.R. Sandlin, who's come in to be a recruiting coordinator guru, $100,000. $100,000 for Curtis Lofton on the Soul Mission. $110,000 for Ryan Young on the Soul Mission. So not that that's too much or whatever, but it's just another reaffirmation that, hey, that football support staff is humongous compared to what it was last year, and this is the cost of that. That is all commitment to go compete in the SEC. So it's not one of those things that we're going to go, oh gosh, you're spending this how many $1,000s. It's just, this is the cost of doing business in the SEC, and it shows, again, it's a real commitment for Oklahoma. They're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, it's an investment commitment, and regardless of how much the biology professor makes, there's Oklahoma football right now is at an all-time high. The interest in OU football is at an all-time high, and like I said, there's going to be 70,000 people at the spring game, which has never happened before. I don't think there might be close to that, but maybe 60 was the all-time record. We talked about it earlier. The stadium's going to be sold out again this season, 85,000 per game, 82,000, whatever it is. Some of the numbers that you're going to see tomorrow, you're going to see a contract approved for Jeff Lebby. I think he's going to average 1.9 million over the next 3 years. He gets 3-year, $5.7 million is what we reported that the Oklahoman had as well earlier in the spring. Earlier in the winter. And then Ted Roof is going to get a contract approved, $3.45 million over 3 years. So he's making about $1.13 million per year. And then the assistant coaches, I don't know what those numbers are going to be today, but I can almost guarantee you every one of them is going to be north of 350. maybe upwards of 550, depending on their experience level and what they've done here at Oklahoma. For Beadenbow, for instance, is up there already. So we'll have that information. We'll have all that stuff for you at allsooners.com when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay plugged into All Sooners tomorrow. Who's going to be all over that while Ryan and I are giving you all the pro day coverage. Big day tomorrow on All Sooners before Ryan and I hit the road to KC on Thursday. Busy times. March is unrelenting. It just keeps on coming this month. But hey, that's all. That's good for us here. We'll continue to provide on All Sooners. One last football thing here before we turn the page to some other sports. I know this has been a long first segment, but lots of stuff to get through. Junior Day, another big recruiting weekend for Oklahoma. Obviously, the big fish is Richard Young, who you had the story on it. The man's big time, number one running back in 247 composites rankings for 2023. His composite score, .991, that's high. That's real high. So this guy is legit. He was in town along with many others. Ryan, you're all over this as well. It was more important stuff for Oklahoma, and they're chasing some big fish here.
Yeah, for sure, and it's building that momentum, right? But it's also a huge chance for Oklahoma, especially ironically. I know we've talked a ton about the defensive staff, but Bill Beadenbow had a huge chance to really make some inroads here. You got Caden Green, who came in. He's a guy that has a chance that once the focus is put back on the 2023 class after some of these re-rankings and stuff like that, I would expect him to be probably a consensus 5-star offensive tackle. And he's a guy that Oklahoma already has a huge, big-time relationship with. Wilkin Formby comes in. His name on paper scares me, guys. I'm not going to lie. He comes in from Tuscaloosa. He's a guy we talked about as one of those guys that was tearing it up in Atlanta, right? So that's another guy that can come in. You've got Miles McVay, who also can, that. Like, if you land those three offensive linemen, that is night and day. Like, you're just already stacking big bodies on big bodies on big bodies. So that's a huge opportunity for Bill Beadenbow. He got to kind of lay that inroads. And then on the defensive side of the ball, got to go. Another guy we talked about, KJ Bolden from Under Armour Atlanta. Last time we talked, he was in town. And you just have a ton of there's so many of them, but you just have to write them down to look at. You've got Samaje Burrell, Samuel Omasago. I hope that's how you say it, but like a pair of linebackers coming in that are it's just over and over. Oklahoma is stacking elite guys on elite guys to bring in, try to get those inroads. And again, that's not even an official visit. So the stuff that you're hearing out of that, it's another, we heard a lot of this under Lincoln Riley, the family atmosphere, stuff like that. But you've got guys that are coming out of this talking about the culture that has been built already. Like, this is a culture that's been built. They were hired in December. This is a junior day happening in March. To have guys raving about that shows you what kind of recruiting monsters this staff is going to put together. And it'll be interesting to track every weekend through March. There's some big time officials coming in, guys coming in for official visits. We talked about Overton at the top of the show. He'll be in April. So this is how that recruiting builds. And then we'll just have to see. Who have you alluded to it? The old staff, Champion Barbecue, spring game. Those were the huge days. Is it going to be in-season visits on game days? Oklahoma has home games against Baylor, against Oklahoma State. Those are marquee home games in November that'll probably be at night. They're the home team for OU Texas. So that's a third marquee game that OU gets to arrange all the official visit stuff for. It would make a lot of sense for OU to try to say, traditionally we've visited early under Lincoln Riley and just tried to hold on. Maybe try to line yourself up and have a huge punctuation dismount at Bedlam at the end of November and have a big day like that. It'll be fascinating to track that throughout the season.
Yeah, you're right. And Young sounds like he's a little bit of a long shot, but here's the deal with people who have been or were on his visit, talk about it when they were present. Wow, he really had a good visit. Wow, he really enjoyed himself. Wow, he really was impressed. Oklahoma really put their best foot forward. We're talking about Alabama, Miami, Oregon.
Yeah.
Who else is recruiting him, or who else is in his Final Five? Ohio State. I crack up at these sometimes because
Clemson,
a guy like Richard Young comes to Norman, Oklahoma for Junior Day, and he does it because he wants to consider what they have to offer. But of course, Oklahoma put their best foot forward. That's what they do. That's what Brent Venables and his staff now are very talented, very skilled. They know what they're doing in the recruiting game. Of course, he had a good time. Of course, he was impressed. Everybody who came in, you're never going to hear, guys, when's the last time you heard a recruit go home from a visit and say, yeah, that wasn't that good. It was pretty lame.
Right.
Nobody ever says that. Everybody's always impressed. So we'll just see. Overton, I think, is really getting interesting. And Ryan, what you said about him coming in on the 23rd on the game day itself, spring game. You talk about best foot forward. Again, they got a chance to put 70,000 people in the stands and have a real festival and and tell him it's all about him and get him to Oklahoma and then give him the real stuff, which is, we're our defensive line, say, is going to be the next Clemson defensive line. That's how, if you're Oklahoma, that's how you sell this thing. Our defensive linemen, look, we have the same D tackles coach, the same coordinator, the same belief system. We're putting in the same this, the same that. And look at all those guys that we sent to the NFL. If you're Oklahoma, you have to tell somebody like Levius Overton, you're next.
Well, and the theory of the case will be three things. You're next with that defensive line, Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis. 2, you're going to play in the SEC. 3, any family members want to come along and play here too? Not something to be taken lightly, for real. Not something to be taken lightly. That's something that when you talk about those 3 things specifically, no one school in his Final 5 can offer all 3 of those things Oklahoma can. The difference will be, is it too little too late for his recruitment, just as far as he won't get to see a single snap of Ted Roof, Miguel Chavis, Todd Bates coaching those guys, Brent Venables in an OU uniform.
Absolutely. Going to be fun to watch. A couple of big fish there. Of course, Overton going to be very interesting. See how Oklahoma continues to chase him in the coming months. All right, take a timeout. We'll come back. Other sports, hoops, into the big stretch here. Home stretch, obviously, for conference tournament week, trying to get the final bids for the men and the women trying to shape themselves up for their tournament run. And, of course, the diamond sports are doing things kind of in the opposite directions a little bit. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about all the other sports next in the SI Sooners podcast.
What's up, guys? It's Kerry with Trade Pros here. We've got a brand new service program coming out this year. It's the new All-Star Service Program. It's only $25 a month. The great thing about it is it's going to save you guys a ton of money throughout the year. Furnace and air conditioning repairs can be very expensive. If you guys need a service call and you're signed up with us, you're not going to have to pay that service charge. The repair is under $500. Trade Pros is going to take care of that as well. Anything over that, you guys are just going to be responsible for 25% of that. Go give us a like on Facebook. Check us out at tradeprosokc.com or give us a call at 405-639-9991.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at @all_Sooners. Ryan is at Radios Ryan. Who's at Johnny Hoover? I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. All right, let's get into other sports here. We'll start with men's basketball. Again, Tanner Groves, Jacob Groves coming up in segment 3 of the SI Sooners podcast right here. Great conversation with them from Kansas City. They're already up there getting ready to go to work. It's going to be a big, big week for the Sooners at the T-Mobile Center. Another big win last week since our last show. They knocked off Kansas State in Manhattan. First win in Manhattan in forever. Lon Kruger never won there. Moser went in there and got it done first try. That's a nice little feather in his cap. And now they go to KC. And like I said earlier, and you guys can either agree or disagree, but in my opinion, it's they win 2, they're in. They win 0, they're not in. They win 1, it's going to depend. It's going to depend on what else happens around the country, and it's going to be an interesting Sunday, basically, in these here parts.
Are you saying Lon Kruger was a K-State sleeper agent?
I don't know what was going on.
Plant.
I don't know. There's no rational explanation for.
I know.
He
had a Final Four team go up there and couldn't get it done. Like, what?
Yeah,
what?
Trae Young couldn't get it done. Like, it's hard. I don't. I don't even know what to say. That he could never win there once. Because not like K-State's a basketball juggernaut here.
He got the first one in Manhattan, though. Romero Osby went out there and showed out. My guy, the forgotten great big of the Lon Kruger era.
That wasn't with Lon Kruger, though. He never won in Manhattan.
Did he not? I thought he got the first one. I'm
pretty sure he was over.
We'll have to dig into the
archive.
Dig in the archive.
I feel like I've been saying that. So if that's wrong, that stinks. I've definitely been saying that. I'm pretty sure he never won there, but I could be wrong. But so they finally get it done. They get the big win in Kansas State. Big for a lot of reasons. It keeps the chance for an at-large alive. They lost that game. An at-large was basically non-existent. It was going to be win the Big 12 tournament or bust. They got out of the 8-9 game into the 7 spot. It's where they'll play number 2 Baylor, number 2 in the Big 12 Baylor, number 3 overall on Thursday night in the Big 12 tournament. A huge win, and I don't know what's going to happen here, guys. But again, it feels like if they can find a way to beat Baylor, that's easier said than done. Obviously, really good team. But if they can find a way to win that, they have a shot to get an at-large. But it feels like they probably need to win 2 to really feel good about it. But we'll see.
This is weird. I looked this up this morning. Oklahoma is one of 5 teams that has 11 losses or more in quad 1 games. So you play a quad 1 team, which is home team against the top 30, or home game against the top 30, neutral site game against the top 50, or road game against the top 75 in the net rankings. So Oklahoma is one of 5 teams in the country that have 11 losses or more against a quad 1. Oklahoma's net ranking right now is 42, which is pretty good. You got 11 losses against quad 1, and your net ranking's 42. 3 of those other 4 are like 140, 150, 199. They're all way out of the tournament field. They're not even in the discussion. They have losing records and they're terrible teams. So the fact that Oklahoma is even in this discussion is impressive to me. That the stuff that Porter Moser has done, especially down the stretch. He got another quad 1 win the other day at Manhattan. So it's some of those, I think, one of them, I think maybe Georgetown is like 0-12 in quad 1. That's not going to get you very high in the rankings, but it's an interesting setup for Oklahoma in that they have had a tough schedule and they've got 3 of those wins. Is it 4 now? I think 4 quad 1 wins, 3 or 4, whatever the number is at this current time.
It's 3, and it'll probably stay that way because so you sweep K-State and you swept West Virginia, and those 2 are on the borderline of being quad 1 or quad 2 in the net. Whoever wins that on Wednesday night will probably stay a quad 1 win, and the others will drop to quad 2. So
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So, they've won some games. They've locked up some good wins. They have a bad loss to Butler and a couple of other bad losses that you're not supposed to lose some of those games. But that's the thing. If they had not lost, if they had not dropped some of those games that they did drop, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion. We'd be saying, well, Oklahoma's going to wait and see what their seed is. But that's the thing I think that has helped them focus down the stretch. And I said the same thing. I predicted, guys, last week that Oklahoma State was going to beat Iowa State and Oklahoma State was going to beat Texas Tech. The reason is they're focused on one thing. They're focused on winning their 14th game, and then they're focused on winning their 15th game. For Oklahoma, their focus is winning this game and building that resume, getting into the NCAA tournament. Everybody else right now is like, well, gee, if we could get more quad 1 wins, we could get on that next tier and we could get a better seed. And what's going to be our seed for the NCAA tournament? And, everybody else has got things on their head, on their minds that is not right in front of them. They're looking toward the future. Oklahoma has been put in a box right now, put itself in a box, to where they have to focus on what's right here in front of them right now. So I think that's helped. I think that's helped them down the stretch. Another thing that's helped is playing the three of the 4 worst teams in the Big 12. For sure. That has helped down the stretch. But they were able to capitalize on all 3 of those opportunities.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hungry dog runs faster. When one team wants it, it has more on the line. It's kind of just human nature a lot of times in these kind of situations. And also, Ryan, I did confirm that Lon did not ever win in Manhattan, at least not at OU. I found a game recap found a game recap from 2020 that said that he had yet to win, and they lost that year and they lost last year. So
we've got dueling game recaps, because if you go Google OU Kansas State box score 2012, OU won 63-60, and the whole post game is about they're happy they could win it for Coach Kruger and his return to Manhattan.
Huh.
So
somebody,
I've definitely seen the stat that he has never won there. Yeah,
it's weird. Weird.
I'm not misreading it. Oklahoma coach Lon Kruger spent his college days playing for Kansas State, and as a head coach has yet to pick up a win at his alma mater. That was in 2020. What's happening?
I know.
Anyway, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
It's hilarious. No, because like this entire recap this comes from January 28th of 2012. OU 63, K-State 60 at Bramlage, and the whole thing is about Lon Kruger winning at home. So wild.
Very intriguing. But anyway,
someone needed a fact check from the editing department.
Something's amiss.
Anyway, here's the really good news for OU right now. When you look across the country, so Murray State, they're in the Ohio Valley, ranked, and no one else in that conference was going to make the NCAA tournament by doing anything other than winning the conference tournament. Murray State wins it. You look at the Atlantic Sun, that wild scene that happened in the past couple of days here where the 1 seed crashes out, but the team that ends up winning it is in that transition from D2 to D1, so they're not eligible to go to the tournament, so the auto bid goes back to the 1 seed. All of that stuff would have shrunk the bubble, not just for Oklahoma, but for any of those teams. They're in the first 4, next 4 out, all that stuff. Really, the only one that didn't go OU's way is Loyola Chicago punching their ticket, but they were like a last 4 out team anyway, so as far as the bubble shrinking, that's like best case scenario of someone that's not chalk is going to win a tournament game. So that's the good news. The bad news is you're going to have to beat the number 3 team in the country. Like you have to beat them to even make Selection Sunday interesting. You have to turn around and beat either Texas Tech or Iowa State in game 2, who the last time you played both of those teams, it was ugly. They were road games, but it was ugly. Those are the only 2 games. Like Porter Moser said it after the K-State game. Like those were the only 2 games this year they weren't in, really. Auburn, they felt like they were in, but he's like, those were 2 games you weren't in. So that's the bad news. But at least you know what you need. Like it's you go in and you know exactly you got to get that win against Baylor, and then you really, really, if you want to feel good about stuff, have to win that second game. So that'll be interesting to see. The more good news is against West Virginia, against K-State. Like the close to the game, the last 4 minutes of those games were very strong close from Oklahoma. It was the opposite of how it was against Oklahoma State, where they were up big and let the Cowboys back into that. Back and forth battle against West Virginia, and then they really asserted themselves at the end. K-State, they were kind of had a little cushion and then just coasted to the finish. Almost wasn't a nervy thing at all. So they're going to be playing some of their most confident basketball, at least since the non-con slate.
All right, guys, confirmed. January 28th, 2012. Oklahoma 63, Kansas State 60. That was Lon Kruger's first game back at Bramlage since 1990. Stephen Pledger, after scoring 30 points that game, said, quote, "This is where he rocked out on the court, so this is great to have won that game."
That's
Lon
so
Kruger
weird.
said, "Pales by comparison to what it means to the players. They're not aware where I went to school." No, they know where you went to school, Lon, and they knew you were a legend in the Big 8. 2-time player of the year. Let's put some respect on Lon Kruger's name. He did beat the Wildcats that first time and then gave it up 9 times in a row.
I was going to say, so I guess the losing streak was just so long that people just forgot that first game even happened. I am certain that people have said he never won there for a long time. I mean, I just read you that AP game recap from 2020 where they literally said it. That's AP.
Yeah. I just remember
it didn't have an author.
I just remember the only reason I know that is because in the game preview for this one, I was like, let me go manually count because I'm teetering, couldn't remember. And I was like, Lon was there for 10 years, 9-game losing streak. He got one.
I'm baffled. I'm baffled by that AP recap in 2020. It didn't have an author assigned to it, so don't be jumping on our guy Cliff. He didn't necessarily write it. It didn't have an author attached.
It's a local operation. It's a
what's
local
going on?
operation. Pass the buck.
What was going on that day? But anyway, so Lonker did get one. But anyway, either way, they Porter Moser matched him in his first try.
Yeah.
But snapped that long skid out there in Manhattan. There's been a House of Horrors beautiful jersey matchup, by the way. The crimson and the lavender. Holy moly, that was great. Because remember, we talked about the lavender before, how much you didn't like it, but your biggest gripe was that the shorts didn't match.
Right.
They changed the shorts. So have you come around? Are you on Team Lavender?
Yeah. It was good. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. As long as I'm not sliding down the hill in my new pants in the mud outside Bramlage, everything is fine with K-State. Everything else is fine. I'm not taking a header on my backside.
I randomly thought of that the other day and just chuckled myself. I was glad you were okay because I'd already laughed a lot. So I was like, man, what if he really messed up his hip or something?
With 100 pounds of recording equipment trailing behind me in my big red wagon. We'll never forget that one.
Oh God, that was so great. That was so great.
Appreciate you guys' help. Yeah. Thank you for your support.
Amazing.
Hey, I felt the wagon to make sure you weren't overrun.
If they're still in the Big 12 and we go back in 2023, that hill, we're going to eyeball that hill and be like, avoid.
Oh, I'm bringing a flamethrower and a shovel. I'm going to set it on fire and then I'm going to dig it all out.
Well, I'm going to bring one of those wooden stakes that hey, we remember at this spot and lay a bouquet of flowers at it, or an old pair of pants.
And then change his pants in the parking lot. Oh man,
I can honestly say I think that's the first time I've been naked outdoors in the state of Kansas.
Probably not the last.
It probably will be the last, actually. So,
what a great trip to Manhattan that was. But anyway, Ryan and I were making more memories in Kansas. Kind of, is it Missouri technically? I don't know.
Yep.
It's on the border.
Downtown KC Mo.
We'll be driving through, but here coming up in just a couple of days. But anyway, switching over to the women. So the women's team is going to be in Kansas City as well. Ryan and I will be covering them as well. It was it's a nice little twofer for us to be staying in Kansas City to see both teams. The schedule worked out beautifully.
So much better. They used to have the women in Dallas at the American Airlines Center.
Well, it was OKC too,
where you might have 15 people watching the game, and up in Kansas City you got 8,000 at Sprint Center. Used to be Sprint Center, watching the men's game. It's like, what? Why would you do that? But now they put them back in Kansas City. One's at the Municipal Auditorium. The women will be playing downtown, and the men will be playing also downtown in a different basketball arena.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool that they're in the same place. Makes it a lot easier on us. Now, like I was saying, the scheduling worked out quite good because the men play Thursday night at 6. Then even if they win, they'll play Friday night. The women play Thursday or Friday at 11. So pretty golden all the way around there. Now, I think if the men made it to the championship and the women were in the semis, I think there would be some crossover there. But obviously, cross that bridge when we get there if teams can rack up some wins here. But either way, Ryan and I will be there, and they end the season with a thud. I mean, they beat OSU. It was a little closer than you probably want, but they beat them. They won in Stillwater, swept Bedlam, and they lose at home to Kansas. And just kind of bleh. I mean, Kansas is not bad. They're right in the middle of the Big 12. They're going to play them again in the 4-5 on Friday, but still, Kansas was in front the whole game. I mean, it was a pretty decisive win for the Jayhawks in Norman. Not the way you want to end your regular season. Obviously, I wouldn't say never because there's still a conference tournament to play, but it really hurt them as far as getting into that top 16, which is huge in the women's tournament because you get to play at home if you get in the top 16. And they were right on the fringe of that before that game. So now I'm kind of feeling like they need to go on a serious run to get back in that conversation.
Yeah, the NCAA had them at number 16, meaning they would have been the final of the lowest of the final seeds. If they could have hung on to that number 16 spot, beat Kansas and get into the Big 12 tournament, hold on to that 16 spot, you get to go to the NCAA tournament and you get to host as many as 2 games in that first round, second round regional. So
right,
wasted opportunity, huge loss, massive disappointment for OU women's basketball fans who were hoping to have a couple of home games.
Yeah, and just how everything's set up too. You get the instant rematch with Kansas, but then you got to go through Iowa State, who you haven't beat yet this year, right? So it'll be interesting for the women on that front. I guess not that you want to tempt fate and try to beat Baylor a third time, but you feel a lot more confident playing in that game to get to a final, as opposed to having to go through Iowa State probably and then probably Baylor for a third time to win the whole thing. But this is as competitive a squad as they've had in years. You're going to Kansas City with not the mindset of hope they nick one. Like, they should win that first game despite what happened in Norman against the Jayhawks, and then roll the ball out there against Iowa State and see what you can do.
Absolutely, and we'll be there. First time for me this season getting to see the women's team in person. I'm looking forward to it in Kansas City against Kansas. So we'll see how that goes. I get a chance for some immediate revenge after a bad loss to the Jayhawks. By the way, I didn't mention it. The women will be in the tournament, obviously. No matter, they could lose to Kansas by 50, they'll be in the tournament. The men, we all assume that they'll take an NIT bid if that's the way this goes. I don't really see any reason for that not to happen. Porter Moser, seems like a guy who would be all for something like that, the chance to continue to grow the program moving forward. So, I mean, that's not a guarantee. That's not me reporting anything. It's just kind of, some teams act like they're big time for it. I can't see that happening with OU. So I think that we're going to have more OU basketball after this week in Kansas City either way. That's at least at least what my thought process.
Yeah, Porter talked about earlier this year. Year one at Loyola, I think they made it to the CBI, which is again a rung below the NIT. And he's like, their attitude was, "We're there. Let's go win the whole thing and build that culture in year one." And that's exactly what they did. So I would be stunned if for some reason OU's not competing in the NIT, because it'll be a chance to say, "All right, Bijan, you're gonna be running the offense. Let's give you a few more minutes in this thing and let you kind of get that going as well as a chance to, obviously the super seniors, Shagwa, Johnson, and Goldwire don't want to miss the NCAA tournament, but you can get a watch for winning the NIT. Roll that baby out there. If you're going to play it.
I mean, yeah, you go on a run, you end up in MSG. I mean, it's you want to be in the big dance, but if you don't make it and you're playing the NIT, there's every reason to go in there and try to win, try to see what you can do. So, like I said, I do expect that if OU missed the NCAA tournament, I'm with Ryan. I'd be very surprised if that invitation came their way that they didn't take it. And that could mean games at the Lloyd Noble Center. I mean, depends on what seed they get, but that could be that could happen. So we'll obviously update you on all that. I assume that we'll find out about that on Sunday as well. After the NCAA tournament comes out, probably that evening, if that's the way we're headed. So we'll keep plugging in allsooners.com this weekend for all the details on what OU basketball is doing in the postseason, both men and women. So looking over at the Diamond Sports now a little bit here before we head on over to the Groves Bros. Softball has only played once since our last show. They had a very long stretch without a game, kind of weirdly. They had their home opener yesterday, Monday, against Minnesota. Who was there? Jocelyn Alo still is not being allowed to hit, basically. It's kind of crazy. They still ruled Minnesota anyway because the lineup is ridiculous, but they're 16-0. Alo's still chasing the record. Does she get it in Hawaii? I mean, that depends on whether or not she gets to actually swing. I don't know what's happening right now. I don't know if she's ever going to swing again.
Yeah, I asked Patty after the game about, guys being focused around her. The hitters that are hitting before her are getting on base. The hitters that are hitting after her are getting on base. But yet the opposing teams continue to throw Jocelyn out of the strike zone. And yesterday there was a lot of frustration in the stands. 1,500 people sell out.
I imagine.
All the tickets were gone, but the wind was blowing in, so there were no home runs. So that's one thing they were frustrated about. And then secondly, the opposing pitchers were staying out of the strike zone. And this is all, of course, on the coach. The coach doesn't want their pitcher to be tabbed in history as the person who gave up the big home run. if I'm a pitcher, guys, and my coach is telling me that, I'm going, Coach, I love you. I respect you. I know you want to win the game, but I can get her out. I'm like Hoosiers. I'll do it. Give me the ball. I'll strike her out. I can't wait. But Patty expressed some frustration. She said that Jocelyn's being frustrated, and it's a frustrating situation because hitters want to hit, and there's nobody allowing her to hit right now. Surely somebody is going to recognize this in Hawaii. They play 4 games in Hawaii. First of all, how serendipitous is it?
Unbelievable.
That Jocelyn Alo gets to go to Hawaii. You got to fly halfway around the world to go to your home state so you can hit the NCAA career home run record. It's going to happen. But somebody needs to man up and say, we're going to pitch to her. And if she can hit a home run on us and make it 4-1 instead of 3-1, more power to her. I don't understand the mentality, guys. I just don't understand. I've called it gutless before. And I'm not talking about the pitchers. I'm talking about the pitching coaches and the head coaches who refuse to allow it to happen. They don't want to. Nobody wants any part of this. And hearing Patty talk about it last night really express about how, well, this is going to be up to the opposing pitchers and the opposing coaches and what they want to do. I'm like, why are we here? Why are we at this point? This is sports we're talking about.
Yeah.
Sports. Compete against Oklahoma. If you want to be the best there is, if you want to put it on your resume that 1, you struck out Jocelyn Alo. 2, she didn't hit the home run against you when you pitched to her. And 3, maybe your team wins the game. Stop being so afraid. Compete.
Yeah, it's to the point. I think OU fans yesterday might have cheered a Jocelyn Alo strikeout yesterday because that would have meant that the team, it's that point. They might just be pumped. Fans might just be pumped to see her actually have a real at bat.
She did take one big cut, and the fans were like,
"That's right."
Yeah, one cut. She took one swing yesterday.
There was one pitch remotely close. It was still a ball, but it was within the area code of her. So she was like, "I'm taking a cut. Let's see what happens." It didn't work out that way.
Yeah, well, the Minnesota pitcher too also caught some heat. So I don't know if you saw this on the broadcast, John, but she was kind of it was like an incredulous smile when she'd get booed after the walk because I think she almost was trying to tell the fans I'm just following orders. It's not my thing. But she did try to paint a back corner on ball 4 of the second one, which was the first real intentional walk. And the umpire was like, no, you just pitched 3. No. Jocelyn already set her bat down. You're done. Patty not after the game, but we talked to her last Thursday, the same day we talked to all the assistants. She was really frustrated then, and she said basically that she was told by some of those coaches at the Mary Nutter Classic that, well, isn't this going to be great that she can set the record in Hawaii? And Patty's like, that's what? So you're just not going to you're just going to try to be oh, I'm going to pass the buck down on Beyond. So unfortunately, I don't expect Baylor to pitch to her. In conference pettiness, and that's just kind of who Baylor is. That softball program, they're good every 4 years, and they just try to avoid the bad press. In the meantime, I would be stunned if they pitch to him. I think Hawaii has to pitch to her. 2 games there. As of last week, they were just opening it up free admission. They weren't even charging anyone to these games. The crowds are expected to be bananas. If Hawaii, the home team, doesn't pitch to Jocelyn, there may be a riot. And that program is going to have no local support of what the heck? You didn't if she gets intentionally walked against Baylor and against Cal, I think she'll have 2 games. But here's the thing. If it gets to that, if it gets to game 2 against Hawaii, this is now a 10-game experience of Jocelyn not getting balls she can even hit. Patty, before the season, she had talked to me and Chisholm on the radio show on the franchise that in her mind, Patty was let's get this thing at 115, at 125 so that no one can ever touch it. There are 50 regular season games on this schedule. 1/5 of them are going to be spent Jocelyn just standing up there saying, another walk, you're not even going to try to pitch to me. That's what sucks is that Jocelyn, this is going to hurt. She's going to get the record, but it's going to hurt her chase to set that thing as high as possible so no one else can catch it because 1/5 of the schedule has been just cowards.
Yeah, pretty wild. Her on-base percentage is insane though.
Yeah.
She's probably going for some kind of record there. Gotta be. She's gone on base 9,000 times in a row because she just walks every time.
Yeah.
And also A couple of those Minnesota ones were kind of close. I expected her to kind of lean over and try. I've seen Miguel Cabrera did it in Major League Baseball one time, and some of them were close. I was like, if she leans a little, she could probably reach one of these.
Yeah,
but
Chamberlain used to golf
never
with those low and outside. She'd like if you didn't get it low and outside enough. Chamberlain was known to golf a few of those bad boys out of Marita Hines.
Yeah, so that's probably coming soon.
She's a really good bad ball hitter. Alo is, so she is able to. Her average is, I think, the 4th highest in school history right now, and the 3 that are ahead of her are her teammates right now. So that tells you right there. I think I read a stat today where Lauren, her career batting average was 390, and I think right now Jocelyn's is like 419. So she can square up, she can hit for average, she can hit for power. I just want to see her get a chance. Hey, listen, if you go at her and you strike her out 3 times, you are more power to you. But if you refuse to even give her a chance, what are you even doing out there? What are you teaching your players?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see if that continues into Hawaii or not. It's going to be an interesting little storyline. And by the way, I was watching the game yesterday on Bally Sports Oklahoma, and Hoover got a shout out on the broadcast.
How big the press box is? It's pretty small. There was about 15 of us in the press box. Plank turned around and said, Ryan Aver's here, Hoover's here, Joe Castiglione's here. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, he was like, all the celebrities are out, and he listed like 3 names, and he said John Hoover. And I was like, hey.
My wife was watching the game as well. She said, what happened now? She gets the remote and rewinds it.
So that was we are in the presence of a shout outer royalty here.
Chris Plank is the man. I'll just say that. Plank, if you're listening, shout out, bro.
Yeah. There you go.
That's not the first shout out ever. Not the first shout out we've got this year on the Plankster broadcast. So now he's officially shout out all 3 of us on the Plank broadcast this year.
That's what's up. Unofficial 4th member of All Sooners is Chris Plank, just plugging us when he can. So appreciate him doing that. That was pretty funny. Last thing, baseball. Bad weekend in Houston. Bad. Now they did bounce back and win today. I was at the game earlier today. I just got home a little bit ago before we started recording the show. They did bounce back and beat Dallas Baptist today, which is a good program. If you keep up with college baseball, DBU is always very consistent, usually a tournament team. So that is a good win today. They won over DBU 8-7. Now they had a 6-run lead and almost blew it. So you can kind of look at it as a little bit of a double thing here, but they did win the game. Skip Johnson talked about after the game that basically the way he put it was they got their hearts broken against LSU, which they should have won that game against number 8 LSU on Friday in Houston. And then they just they let it hang over them over the weekend. They got blown out twice. UCLA crushed them, and then Tennessee blanked them 8-0. And he was like, today it felt like we kind of finally were able to flush it. He's like, we didn't flush it. The LSU game, we let it hang over us. And today we put it past us, and we won a game against a good team. So I don't know what this team is right now. They got off to that good start, and that was a humbling weekend, I think, for OU in Houston. They got beat down by some good teams, and now you have a lot of home games against, subpar competition to try and get, some confidence, I guess, and to kind of get ready for Big 12 play.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, it's going to be interesting to see as this program transitions into the SEC. Do they get better? Do they take action to get better? Whatever that is, if it's going to be commitment to coaching, if it's going to be commitment to additional resources within the staff, if it's going to be a commitment to facility, an improvement of the facility across the board. Because when those SEC guys get here, and it's going to be this way in football too, to an extent, when the press from the SEC shows up and starts kicking around in the press box, they're going to go, "This is Oklahoma," and they're going to come back. They're going to go back to the SEC and they're going to report on crappy press boxes, substandard this, and not up to the SEC par. It's going to be something that Joe Castiglione, I'm sure, is looking at, considering right now. Surely when Love's Field gets here and for softball, that's going to be put Oklahoma ahead of what the SEC is doing. But if the SEC media crew came to Marita Hines right now and they're looking for a seat, they're going to leave frustrated. because it's just not big enough. There's no seats. It's a nice little facility, but it's a little facility. And I think baseball's in that same situation where they have to do some major upgrades. Or guys, it's the SEC. They don't muck around in the SEC when it comes to baseball. They will run rule you on a consistent basis if you're not up to the task. They're good.
Yeah, for sure. And this year's a big year for that, to lay that foundation, get some momentum back recruiting. So they were in such a good spot. Skip was recruiting so well that those guys were going straight to the draft, right? And then you miss out on the COVID shortened year. Was a year that you had a legitimate shot to make some noise, screw around and end up in Omaha. And then last year was just a huge disappointment. So here's the thing. If they can hang in there, college baseball, Josh, you'd know better than me, but college baseball has been nutty so far. Even looking around, like UCLA takes a game off of number 1 Texas down there in Houston. You look at Oklahoma State, they go and they're like one of 2 programs in the last 3 years to win a series at Vanderbilt. And then they come back and drop a couple to Gonzaga. Yeah, college baseball is just weird right now. So it's one of those things of you got to figure out that process, like you said, Skip was talking about, of skip, flush this, move on to the next one, and keep coming at it, because figure something out. You've got a couple of starters that look like they can give you some innings in a tournament style thing. Can they get the offense? Can the relievers close it out?
Yeah, it's a big next few weeks for Oklahoma. Like I said, they have a lot of home games coming up against, smaller teams. They play UTSA this weekend. They have New Orleans coming in. You should beef up your record here before Big 12 play starts. And the OU baseball fan base is not as, vast as obviously like football or even softball, but the fans that they have are extremely devoted and care a lot. There are people at these games every time. They have decent crowds. It was freezing again today. People sat out there and just died the whole game. I don't know how people do it. And the people who really care about OU baseball, they really, really care. And there was probably the most agitation I've seen, like on Twitter and stuff like that, this weekend that I've maybe ever seen before. The replies on OU baseball's Twitter account were bad. It was, this is unacceptable. This is, so there's some agitation. This is a big season. They gotta get some positive momentum in this program in ASAP.
OU baseball should have higher standards than to
got a couple of natties. I mean, it's a good program.
And get run ruled like they did. That was embarrassing for the program, I'm sure. And it doesn't make it any easier, I don't think, on Skip and people who are invested in baseball, because the softball program is such a beast right now. Mm-hmm. We always talk about the Diamond Sports. Well, let's compare them. They're not even in the same universe right now. You've got the best program in the country, one of the best that's ever existed. I'd put this Oklahoma team up against any of the past Oklahoma teams or any of the SEC champions or any of the Arizona or UCLA champions. They're on an all-time high right now, and they are just crushing people. And when everybody is feeling good, you leave that game and you go to baseball and you see what happens down in Houston. You're like, something's funky here. Something needs to be changed. So if you guys want to leave the podcast on a high note, let me just say, y'all like softball. Y'all enjoy what the softball team's doing. You're going to want to tune in to what the Groves Bros have to say about the softball team. It was hilarious. It was unbelievable. So check that out coming up in the 3rd segment. Big time.
Yep.
Let me add another high note that happened on campus this weekend. It's not something we cover a whole lot, but with everything going on in the world, the women's tennis team, who are still rolling, by the way, they've got a singles player, Alexandra Pisareva, who is Ukrainian. She went out and she just absolutely blasted her competition against Illinois in the last duel that they hosted. It was a really cool scene, by all accounts, of some unity from that team, showing some support for her, and her personally to go out there and perform like that with everything going on right now. A real high note on campus in Norman, with and a lot of spring sports that are just kicking it. OU women's gymnastics just beat number 1 Michigan, all that stuff. So don't let one diamond sport that's struggling right now drag it too low. There's still a lot of fun stuff going on campus, and it'll be even more fun, like we said, with the Groves Bros here in a second.
For sure, absolutely. I don't even want to, don't even want to throw too much dirt on baseball. They got off to a good start. They had a good weekend in Arlington. The Houston weekend was rough, but at the same time, they were right there. They should have beat number 8 LSU, and if they win that game, the whole weekend might be different. Baseball is very momentum that way. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. They got a good win today against Dallas Baptist, back above 500, and a lot of home games coming up. Season's still very, very early, obviously. All right, we'll take a timeout. Come back, third segment with the Groves Bros. Great conversation with them from their hotel room in Kansas City, getting ready for the Big 12 tournament this week, opening with Baylor on Thursday. So that's coming up in the final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Next up with the Groves Bros.
Hey guys, John Hoover for Trade Pros. Listen, they got something special going on at Trade Pros. It's the All-Star Service Agreement. Sign up now for just $25 a month, and the guys at Trade Pros will come out twice a year for routine maintenance. Plus, you get up to 2 pounds of Freon every year at no charge. And get this, if your heating or air unit needs work, it's not going to cost you anything if the repair is less than $500. And if it's more than $500, your cost comes in at just 25% of the Trade Pros price. It's the All-Star Service Program. Some conditions apply, so give the guys at Trade Pros a call, 405-639-9991, or hit them up on the website, tradeprosokc.com.
All right, final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Time for a weekly segment with the Groves brothers. We call it the Groves Bros. Tanner and Jacob Groves join the SI Sooners podcast every Wednesday, exclusively thanks to our good friends at Trade Pros. If you need service, maintenance, or if you just got heating or air issues of any kind, just call Trade Pros, 405-639-9991. They're from Oklahoma. They work in Oklahoma. They live in Oklahoma, and they'll get you guys taken care of. Tanner, Jacob, you guys are in Kansas City right now at the hotel. You had a big practice today. So let's do it. Let's give the folks some insight about the team. How was practice? How do you think the guys are responding to finishing, this regular season on a 3-game winning streak? All that. How's it going right now?
Oh man, I think we're feeling pretty good right now. We've had a lot of really good practices the last 2 weeks, just leading up to the last 3 games in regular season, and we won those 3. We're feeling good right now. We've got a little momentum behind us, and we've been really locked in practice, just working hard. And from what I can tell, I think that the guys are all ready to go, and we're looking good right now. And I think that everyone always says, anything can happen, but I think that we're playing some of our best basketball right now, and I think that's what matters this time of year. And so I'm really excited for the game coming up, and I like the momentum we're bringing in right now.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Tanner said it. We've had a great past couple of days of practice, and then we get an opportunity to shoot around in the T-Mobile Center tomorrow, and so that'll be fun. Just kind of get the lay of the land and get some shots up in the arena on the court, and get used to that. And so that'll be cool. But we've done a great job. I mean, I think it's great having a couple more more so days, like 4 days before your next game, rather than a 2 or 3 day turnaround like we've had all season. And so it's really allowing us to kind of fall into the scout and just be intentional on what we're doing every practice, and come to compete, and just kind of make sure that we all have a good understanding of what Baylor's going to do Thursday night. And so we've had a great week, and we got obviously practice tomorrow, and then we got walkthroughs and stuff like that too, just kind of fine tuning some things, getting dialed in. And so we're definitely ready. I mean, I think just like Tanner said, we're playing some of our best basketball. We kind of got a little momentum behind us. We won the past 3, and so we're really excited to play Thursday night.
We talked to Jordan Goldwire on Tuesday, and he kind of talked about this feeling that you guys knew these last 3 games, you needed to get all 3 of those games. I kind of want to ask you guys, how familiar is that from your perspective, coming from even a year ago, right? Going through the Big Sky tournament, like that's a situation where you need to win all of those games. Now you come to this, probably need to win at least 1. Feel real good if you can grab 2. Is that something that you can kind of carry over, that experience of you're almost pressed because you got to win these games?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit. I think, the Big Sky, regular season didn't really matter as much, and it really just came down to who's playing their best basketball come conference tournament time. And I think last year our team that Jake and I were on were in a really similar situation. We felt we were the best team in the league for sure, but ended up I think grabbing the 3 seed in our conference and then ended up just handedly winning all our games in the conference tournament. But from the team's perspective, we knew that we need to win these 3 games. There's 3 games we need to win. If we lose any one of them, then we have no shot and our season's over. And so it's similar. We're in a similar. Even going back a few games ago, we were in that same situation. It's like we need to finish out the season winning these 3 games, or else our postseason chances are low unless we can win the conference tournament. And so we were able to put ourselves in a great position, and now we're still kind of in that position, and we got to get 1 or 2, and we have no doubt that we can do that. I think, like I said, it comes down to playing your best basketball at this time of year, and I think the guys are ready to go, and I think we're kind of locked in right now.
Yeah, just it's funny because obviously we talk about it all the time in the locker room. I mean, we're always talking about how we're obviously playing to keep our tournament hopes alive, and so when you're playing with something on the line like that, I mean, I think it gets real for a lot of the guys, and they kind of understand that these are games that we really have to win. And so just and I think it's shown a lot with our practices, and just how we prepare for the games, just how intentional we've been, how good we've been locked in, to the scout and just everything game plan wise, and then just being able to transfer that over into the game and kind of be able to work our game plan in and win those games has been huge for us. And so we're definitely, a team right now that still has high hopes of kind of getting in the tournament. We know we need to win some games. And so we're definitely ready to tackle those games.
Yeah, to talk about tackling those games, obviously we'll look ahead a little bit here. First one, you have Baylor on Thursday night. You guys have already seen them twice. Obviously, that's the case of every game you would have in the Big 12 tournament. I don't know how often right off you guys have played the same team 3 times in a year, but what are some challenges whenever that happens, a third time, and what are some things you can take from the first 2 games into this one? How much can you, how much do you look back, and how much is it kind of trying not to overthink too much the last 2 and make it a fresh slate going into the third time?
Man, just, obviously third time you're playing a team, it's almost like exactly what they're going to do. And so a lot of times it eventually just comes down to guarding your man and playing one-on-one basketball and getting rebounds and, trying to score more points than the other team. And so I think that that's kind of what it comes down to against these guys. I think that Baylor probably knows us just as well as we know them. And so at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to, one-on-one basketball. It's going to come down to ISO basketball. And so we just gotta lock in and make sure we're guarding, being solid. But no, Baylor's a good team. I think they're down 1 or 2 guys, 1 or 2 key guys. And so, just like us, we're down a key guy. And, I think that the matchup is going to be pretty, back and forth. And I think Oklahoma State just got them, and so there's no doubt that we can go win this game. So we're really excited. Coach has got us feeling good, and we're really excited for this one.
Yeah, I think just adding on to that, Baylor's they're a very good team. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But it's funny when we start scouting teams, we go back and watch the past 2 times that we've played them. And just watching those games, we're all just, sitting there just kind of kicking ourselves because I think we had 25 turnovers in one of the games and then 19 in the other, which is, obviously incredibly high. And so we're not going to win many games turning the ball over like that. And so we've been, very intentional about just taking care of the ball. And then, like Tanner said, just kind of guarding your yard is what kind of the terminology that we use. But just kind of being able to stay in front of your man, have a little bit of resistance, make things difficult, and then also being a good teammate, being in the right spot at the right time, and kind of helping out, our teammates. And so, that's been huge. I mean, obviously, like I said, Baylor's a great team, and but I think a group like us, a group of guys who's obviously the underdog in a situation like this, who's probably been counted out by a lot of people, can be really dangerous this time of year. I mean, all that really matters is, the belief that we have in our locker room. And so, We know that's strong, and we kind of tune out the people that are counting us out a little bit, and we're excited to go and hopefully, make something happen on Thursday.
So road trips are one thing, but tournaments are a whole other animal. And we all love the games. We all love sitting courtside. You guys love playing in the games. But the best memories that I've ever made in basketball, covering college basketball, were at the team hotel, or not the team hotel, but the media hotel, in the hospitality room, hours after the game. Maybe you're sitting at press row, or you're chatting up your friends from another newspaper or whatever it is, another radio station, whatever. And you're making these memories. Okay. So what I want you guys to do is take me through that process. Road games are one thing. You get to bond as a road team, but when you're on the tournament with your guys, you're on the road for an entire week, hotels, restaurants, you got bus trips. You go through some things that nobody else went through, whatever it is, whether it's your bus got stuck or, stuff happens. How much are you guys able to bond as a team? How much does that really enhance the experience of being a college athlete?
I think it's been awesome. I mean, honestly, I think for a lot of our guys, it brings us back to the AAU days where you're traveling around the country and you're playing a game every day, and you're staying in the same hotel on the same floor as all your teammates, and it's funny because you can hear, we're up till midnight, whatever time we go to bed, doors on our floor are constantly banging, shut and close. And so guys are just in and out of everyone's rooms and just kind of hanging out with each other. We have a couple of guys who bring their consoles. And so there's a lot of Madden games and 2K games that go on. And so, I think that's a big part of our team too, is just kind of coming together, and then, sharing meals. Is we actually just, we had a team meal tonight with all the coaches and stuff. And it's cool to look around and just see how loud the room is. Everyone's just talking, laughing, and stuff like that. There's no one just buried into their phones and doing that. And so that's been really cool to see, and just, how kind of bonded this group has become, and, how, good of friends we are off the court, and just, how how much we just like each other. I mean, we like hanging out with each other, and we do a lot of stuff together. I mean, we spend 7 hours a day in the gym together. So it's kind of, it brings some challenges when there's, a little bit of bad blood, but it's, this is one of those teams that just has none of that. And so it's been really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, we started out this journey back in June as, a group of guys that, only a handful of guys knew each other, and they didn't know any of the coaching staff or anything. And so it's been kind of cool to just see, where we've come from and where we are now, just as a team. I think even, from our first tournament all the way until now, I look at the Myrtle Beach tournament that we played in at the start of the year. And, like Jake mentioned earlier, guys are, when we were at Myrtle Beach, guys are constantly on their phones, we're on our phones, everyone's just kind of sitting around. There's not a lot of talking. And, you go from that all the way till what Jake just described. We were at dinner, and, you're hearing laughing and just talking and shouting here and there, just, a team dynamic, which is just really cool. And so that just kind of goes to show, just the whole year that we've spent together, just bonding, growing closer with each other. And, this conference tournament only makes us, even that much closer. I think that conference tournament is especially, when teams get close, and when it really shows on the court, And so I just really, really enjoying this opportunity, being able to do this, and love the guys I'm doing it with too.
Okay. I have so many three follow-ups. We're going to rapid fire, clear out, take it over. Real quick, best Madden player on the team.
I was wondering the same thing. Ryan beat me to it. I was
I think
that's on the
pick. Jay Hill is really
Hill's pretty good. I heard Jordan's pretty good as well. Yeah.
Okay, 2K.
2K. Who are you trying to think? It's funny because one of our student managers, Maddie Carney, plays a lot with us and stuff, and so that's all he plays is 2K. He's funny. So
Jordan and Marvin are good, I think.
Okay. And then last one. This is a total problem I've never encountered, and I've always been fascinated with the perfect crew. I'm the shortest person here. I'm 5'9", not even close to a tall person. Rick Asanza, do you guys ever have trouble with like, hey, is the bed long enough for Rick? What does that look like for the basketball team rolling into some of these tournaments?
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because Rick is so big. Like, I think I'm big, like 6'8", 6'9". Tanner's big, and we got some big guys. But when we stand next to Rick, he just towers over us. And so, you look at the problems that we have. Like our feet are hanging off the edge of the hotel bed, and like I can only imagine the problems that Rick runs into. Like how he even showers in the hotel. It like he's got to have like I don't even know. It's unbelievable though.
Yeah, I was gonna say the worst is like there's some hotels we've stayed at this year where I'm like, man, I don't even really fit in this bed, and I'm like, man, I can't imagine what Rick is going through. And then also like Jake just said, the hotel showers a lot of the times like the shower head will be like right here for me, and so it's like I can't even imagine what it's like for Rick. That's just awful.
Got to get Rick an ottoman. Okay, back on track. It's postseason time. Historically, you guys are playing for a coach that has made his money in the postseason. You talk about CBI run at Loyola. You talk about Final Four, Sweet 16. Does that rub off on you guys? Do you draw any like extra confidence, or are you guys even more locked in, knowing like, hey, dial into Porter because he knows how to navigate through these knockout tournaments and how to get those championships and on beyond?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think we all are at a point where we kind of trust him and we know the process of everything that he goes through and just how deep that he dives into the other teams and in the scouting that he does. And so I think that's where a lot of our confidence comes from, and in his as well. And so it's been really cool to just kind of be a part of that. And we've said it all year. It's just like, we just got to make it to the tournament because once we're in, anything can happen. Like we always say that if we get in, and we're whatever, an 11 or put us in a play-in game, we'll be a 12 seed. We're going to be a really dangerous 12 seed to play against. And so, I think obviously that excites everybody, and it's just one of those things where we have a lot of trust in him and our coaching staff because they've been there before and they've, upset a lot of teams. And so we kind of have a lot of confidence in that. And then we have a lot of confidence in each other and our team and just kind of the way that we're playing right now. And so I think that just, once we got to make it there, and then once we make it there, anything can happen.
Yeah, no doubt. I think one of the main reasons I even decided to commit here was obviously, Big 12 school, Oklahoma. But another reason was because coach and like what he was able to do with his teams in the postseason, with Loyola Chicago, and how he was able to, kind of like, I mean, not really modern day, but they're kind of like he kind of turned Loyola into what Gonzaga is doing a little bit in a smaller conference. And so, that definitely just gives me a ton of confidence. I think that, especially at this time of the year, you can tell that our guys have been more locked in. We've been playing some really good basketball the last few games, and the coaches have been, likewise, they've been locked in as well. And they put in, hours of work, if not more than the hours that we put in. They're up early every morning. They're at the offices, and they stay late at night, just scouting opponents and getting scouts together, and just we're completely locked in. Those guys are locked in too, and so it's kind of a cool process. It's kind of part of the culture that Coach Mosier's built, and it just gets me excited for the opportunities that this team has ahead of us in the next few days and in the upcoming week or two. So we'll see what happens, but we're definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Tanner, you mentioned Loyola kind of looking like a mini Gonzaga. They punched their ticket to the tournament again the other day, so I'm sure Porter's excited about that. Has he said anything to you guys? Do you know how much he keeps up with Loyola? I assume he watches them all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of those guys that still work there are his obviously really close friends and stuff like that. And so I'm sure he keeps up with them, but
sure,
he tries to kind of keep the Loyola guys out of it and focus on our team, which I think the players kind of like that. I mean,
for sure,
it's hard for a head coach to come in and to a new program and start referencing, oh, Loyola, we did this and our guys did this and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's it kind of puts him in a weird situation and maybe creates a little whatever against the players and the coaches. And so whatever, he's done a really good job about kind of keeping them out of it and just kind of focusing on our team. So
Yeah, no. I think that Coach, he's done, like Jake said, he's done a good job. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of for guys like us, kind of like it's kind of hard not to keep track with those guys. You spend so much time with them in the previous years that it's like you gotta check in on those guys, ask them how they're doing. Jake and I are constantly asking our former teammates that are now from Eastern Washington, now at Portland, or still at Eastern, or elsewhere. And so same situation, you're always checking in on those guys and making sure they're doing all right and wishing them the best of luck. But no, I think Coach, like Jake said, Coach has done a great job with that, and just bringing the culture over and emphasizing it to the guys. So
absolutely. I don't know how it could happen, or I don't know the way it would have to play. But if Oklahoma Loyola could play somehow in the postseason, that would just be so awesome. That's probably a dream matchup. That'd be great. I did have one thing I wanted to ask you guys about, kind of backtracking to the road trips thing. Just obviously, season's winding down here. You guys are in Kansas City this week. You hope you have another one, somewhere next week, obviously for the big tournament. But just curious, you guys have obviously done the Big 12 circuit. You did Orlando, Myrtle Beach, Auburn. What are like the best places you went to this year? It doesn't have to just be like the game day, just like your favorite trips you had this season or in your first year at OU.
Well, that's a really kind of a hard question, because it's like we fly in the night before the game, and then we obviously don't really leave the hotel much, and then we go to the game, and then literally right after the game we shower up on a bus to the airport, and we're home. And so we're spending like less than 24 hours in these towns that we go to. And so I would say for me, probably obviously Myrtle Beach was pretty awesome. I mean, I've been to the beach obviously on the West Coast, but the East Coast beach was pretty dang cool to see and be a part of. And we had a huge, our family came down, and we had a huge kind of group of people come down with my parents that rented some condos down on the beach. And so we got to spend a little bit of time with them and kind of see a different part of Myrtle Beach that was pretty dang cool. And so I would say that was definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I think Myrtle Beach was great. I think we literally, like Jake just said, we literally had, I think, 20 people come to our games just like within our family and our group. It was super cool.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was awesome. But I think that playing at Auburn was also really cool. Kind of a little bit of a fun fact here, diverging in a different direction. But I think when I was in like first or second grade, my dad bought me like NCAA 04 for my PS2. And at the time, the tiger was my favorite animal. And so I would always play mascot games where every player is dressed up like the mascot.
Yes.
I would always be the Auburn Tigers, because they were like number 2 or 3 in the nation at the time. And so I would literally play with them. And ever since then, Auburn has kind of been like one of my favorite NCAA football teams. And so just kind of going to that campus and, driving by the football stadium and seeing that whole thing was pretty cool. And so I would say there, or Myrtle Beach, definitely.
For sure. I loved the Arizona State Sun Devil, the devil guy. That was always my go-to.
Yeah.
You could do it on football.
There were some hilarious
mascot games.
Oh, it's amazing. Pistol.
I remember watching Stanford's mascot's like a tree, and so there were Christmas trees running around.
Yeah, 99 speed.
Oh yeah, you got Syracuse. The oranges weren't running around. There's some good ones.
Love it.
Western Kentucky. Nobody knows what he is.
Oh, that big blob.
Oh yeah.
Sure, it's
it always go. These conversations always go back to video games, don't they? So let me ask you this: the Eagles play tomorrow afternoon. We talked about Loyola. Forget Loyola. Eastern Washington and the Big Sky start tomorrow. Are you guys going to have kind of one eye on some of that a little bit?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we'll definitely try to tune in if we can. We watched all the 2 Portland games when they played the WCC tournament. We watched both their games, and so watched some of our buddies play, and we'll definitely probably try to tune into the Eastern game if we don't have practice or anything going on. Then we'll definitely get it up on the computer or something.
Yeah,
find
absolutely.
a way.
So the biggest story on the OU campus right now probably is the energy around the new football coach. The second biggest story is probably the softball team, number 1 in the country. They're 16-0. They're run ruling everybody, it seems.
Yeah.
And they've got a player who's going to set the all-time career home run record. You guys have a little bit of history with this team. Tell me about I've done this before, and when I did it, it was impossible. I was one of the only people in the media to even get a bat on a ball, as you're coming through the strike zone. It's like, barely hear it hit the bat, but I did it. I was so proud because I was one of the only ones. You guys took BP against the Sooner pitchers. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was right before the season started. That was a lot of fun. Obviously, we went to the softball field and had a little practice with them, and just kind of, a lot of our guys have never played baseball, but some of them, took it kind of seriously and were kind of getting into it and are into that stuff. And so I was all for it. I mean, obviously I love that, but it was very eye-opening for a lot of us. I mean, just how incredibly good those girls are, just from watching them taking BP and literally taking every ball over the fence, like over the bleachers in the stands, like it just unbelievable, like power and stuff like that. And then we got our turn, obviously, with just a little bit of slow pitch, just one of their coaches behind the L screen just kind of tossing us balls. And so we had some guys that were taking them over the fence and that were pretty good, getting some hits and stuff like that. And then they brought out the real pitchers, and that was a mess. That was a mess. There were not many people that even touched the ball, even remotely close. And so it was very eye-opening for a lot of us, me especially. I mean, just a ton of respect for those girls just because they're so good at what they do, obviously. And it's just like, it's unbelievable how you can see a ball coming in that fast and be able to react on it like that. And I mean, I guess it's probably a lot harder for a guy with a 6'9" strike zone, and so the pitcher was probably looking at me like, yeah, it's going down. And so it was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. That was a lot of fun. It was just kind of hilarious seeing, some of the other guys go up to bat, and you can just kind of tell the guys that have only played basketball their whole lives, or never been out on the diamond. It's pretty hilarious to kind of see. So Jake and I have some experience. We weren't the best. I think I was placed out in outfield the whole time when I was I think in elementary school was the last time I played baseball. But yeah, no, those girls are just awesome. They're studs, and they're unbelievable. It was just really cool to see how good they are, and just see that championship standard that coach has kind of built, and just how all those players have bought in, and now national champs last year, and they're on I think number 1 in the country right now, and just absolutely killing it. And so yeah, those girls are just really like studs, and so it'll be kind of fun to see where their season takes them this year. I'm excited to once our season's over, I'm excited to go catch a couple games for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One thing you learn taking batting practice in softballs: do not quit your day job. So hard to hit that ball. You don't get an appreciation for it. It's so close to home plate, and it gets on you so quick. So
yeah, that's another thing that was crazy to us. Is I was expecting, like, I don't know what the MLB pitch is from, like 9 bases are like 90 feet or so, and so I was expecting them to be a little ways away, and they were literally like on top of us. So I was like, "There's no chance I'm touching this ball."
Well, listen, Tanner, Jacob, we are on to the postseason. Hard to believe that the postseason is here. As I said, you guys are in Kansas City right now, so tip-off in a couple of days from when we're recording this. I can't wait. Big 12 tournament starts for y'all on Thursday night. We're excited to see how it all shakes out for you guys, for sure.
Yep, definitely.
Absolutely.
We're excited to see what we can do, and we know that we're capable of a lot of great things, and so we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again to Trade Pros for sponsoring the Groves Bros on the SI Sooners podcast. Y'all need to give those guys a call, 405-639-9991 for all your heating and air needs, or just go to tradeprosokc.com and be back here next Wednesday, as Tanner and Jacob join us for another exclusive segment with the Groves Bros.
As always, you can listen to that one and all episodes of the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've got an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. Go to our website, allsooners.com, click on the player, and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And, of course, we simulcast the video version over on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. We appreciate it if you could like, comment, share, rate, and subscribe. That helps us out, as you know. So for Josh Callaway, Ryan Chapman, and, of course, the Groves Bros, Tanner and Jacob, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.